The idea that young women growing up today have no options other than OnlyFans, you need to touch grass.
These short-term economic gains are destroying community and culture in this country, and it's resulting in, sure, maybe you can buy a PlayStation at 10 p.m. in a Walmart, but 10 years from now, people are going to be substantially worse off in many ways. Right. We're going to have lazy, gluttonous, dejected Gen Alpha, and we're already seeing this with the generations as you further progress, as it were. There's no unity. Kids don't go outside anymore.
Because of free trade?
Yes.
Because of technology.
Okay, no, but wait, it's a little bit deeper than that, because what this is, it's called the fake progress argument. And this is sort of the idea of looking at how do we value a society? What metric are we putting a value onto it? And I think it's kind of funny to me because people say, like Vivek, well, America is anybody. Kash Patel says, America is for everyone in the world. It's a world dream, he said. So in that case, everybody who doesn't live in America is currently an undocumented American. That's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. It's like, yeah, even if you live in Nigeria, you're just an undocumented American. That's not true. America is first and foremost a people. We can debate. This is not the debate right now to find out what that people is. Of course, legally, we've expanded that definition to include other races, to include, full rights to women to vote, etc. That has gone with our 15th Amendment. We have moved in that direction. So I'm not going to debate against our history. What I do bring up the fact is this. When we look at this GDP mindset, this idea that we are an economic zone, this is the mistake that they've made in Canada. This is the mistake they made in Australia. People know I've been living there. When you go into Melbourne, right, when you go into Sydney, it is no longer Australia. And what do I mean by that? It's no longer a European country. If I were to go into Chiang Mai and it was all just a bunch of Englishmen, that's all it was, obviously it wouldn't be Chiang Mai. It's the same reason why there's a lot of white people colonizing India. They got tired of it after a while. They wanted them to leave and they wanted them out. We kind of feel the same way in our countries. Why? Because we're realizing that just looking at our countries like people are, a certain job. That job creates profit or benefit, and that benefit creates GDP. And then we get a new iPhone that has an action button on the side. That's worth gutting the entire Midwest culture of the United States, or giving my children no hope besides maybe OnlyFans if they're a girl, or becoming a podcaster, Tim. God forbid.
Heaven help us.
God forbid our kids ever do that.
But this is just a non-reality. The idea that young women growing up today have no options other than OnlyFans, you need to touch grass.
No,
I'm too much time on Twitter if you think that.
No.
That's not an argument.
It's over. I said.
That's what he literally just said.
No.
I don't want my kids.
You saying touch grass isn't an actual argument to what he said.
Okay, how about
There's
this?
over a million American girls on OnlyFans. That's crazy. There's over a million prostitutes.
That's not because they haven't.
No, I'm saying because they're best options right now. The culture we're creating. We created technology and it's profitable, and we're basing off profit. On that regard, OnlyFans is a good option.
He's right.
OnlyFans is a good option.
Sorry, one second.
For the company.
Any young woman can go to college and become a nurse and instantly be employed. Can become a teacher and instantly be employed.
That's completely wrong.
This is massively in demand.
That's absolutely incorrect.
What about H-1B?
No, hold on. We got to pause there.
It is absolutely
You're
true.
not getting out of college and just getting a job. That's not true.
If you have a useful degree, you absolutely are.
Absolutely incorrect.
We have more jobs right now. We have 8 million job openings, and we have about 6 million unemployed people.
And they're not aligned with the degrees kids are getting.
Because they're getting gender studies degrees. Because
you just said nurse.
Yes.
And so around half of people don't use their
unemployment rate for nurses.
You tell me. I don't know.
I don't know, but I promise you, I'd be willing to bet you $500 right now. It's
around
under 3%.
Half of people don't use their degrees in their field.
Maybe. Yes, because they have useless degrees. My point is that there's a path for anyone to succeed if they study something useful and in demand. There's still a very real path.
Graph go up.
It's not graph go up.
It is.
It's a lifelong employment if you just make basic smart choices.
So let's talk about
I just say the opposite of that. It's like I'm a credentialed science teacher. I also have I was in grad school. I have a background in genetic engineering, molecular biology, and I had my actual researcher. Like, this is why culture matters. And I don't care. This is how I got into politics, by the way, because people say, oh, this is BS or whatever. It's like, no, I was never in politics. I don't have a degree in this. This is not what was happening. It was the fact that two things. One, when I was doing research and we were doing actual, we were studying limb regeneration, epigenetics, and we were trying to, regrow limbs onto axolotls. Essentially, what was happening there is my research lead, my PI, told me that my race was declining. He regretted hiring white men, and he wasn't going to go in that direction. And then he ended up blackballing me because we had a political disagreement. This was during the beginning of the Trump era, which is very common for people. I ended up getting blackballed where one employer told me, look, your resume's fine, but the guy told me that like he didn't have an example. He's like, your character, you know, you don't want this guy on your team. And I told them it was political, and they're like, yeah, but in the end, I do believe you. The girl told me because she was a Trump supporter. This is in LA at the time. So I go to become a high school teacher. I get a credential. I fast track through it through an inner city program, and then I'm the only white guy hired because I've you know two I have credentials. No offense to teachers, but to be like a bachelor's, high school teacher at the time, they had to split into groups, right? Where, you know, you'd be in the oppressor or the oppressed. This is very early woke stuff. And that's how I ended up going on to, the radio. Ended up talking, about how I was upset about this, ended up going into politics. I was so mad about this anti-white woke stuff. So meaning when you say like there are options, it's like I'm an example of the fact that, look, I have the training, I have the pedigree, I graduated summa cum laude, I literally was in every club, I was accepted into grad schools, full ride scholarships. I even got originally a full ride scholarship to UC Irvine. I'm not an idiot, and I am nothing restricting me. I have no criminal history, I have nothing on my record or anything like that, but I couldn't get a job in my field because the culture was skewed. And I know that woke politics is not what we're talking about here. But I'm not saying that. I'm saying
it's
I woke up to going, yeah, your credential and your pedigree can easily become completely depleted or not even worth anything if what the cultural mindset and values that are at play are not aligned with what we want. And the reason why I say that is right now, I was trying to reference Australia. Australia is a good example that we can look at if what you're saying is true, because Australia has less people than live in California, less people than live in Florida, in an entire country, the landmass of the United States. It's a pretty good example. With some of the most advanced cities in the world, it is a global player, and it's also part of the Five Eyes, right, of military intelligence. This is not a minor country. This is a serious player with multi-trillion-dollar GDP. Australia right now has taken the mindset that they are a global country, that they are an economic zone, that anybody can come. They've made a deal with Modi to bring in up to 1 million more Indians per year. They have a deal with China to bring in China if they have a certain amount of wealth in their bank. And what you're having right now is the most explosive, denigrating destruction of a country we will see in terms of, it is, besides Hong Kong, the second highest housing market in the country, because you're bringing in people that are artificially inflating the home prices. But you also have the socialist government, like you said, which I'll agree, that's restricting home building, to prevent environmental destruction. So you have this skewed difference. So right now, I think it's like 8 to 10 times the average yearly salary is like an entry-level home. I might be wrong, maybe 6, but 8 to 10 times last time I read of entry-level salary with a 4-year degree just to be able to get an entry-level 2-bedroom, 1-bathroom house there. They live in smaller homes. On top of that, the competition there, like I have 3 friends there myself who have had to leave cities, move around, and one moved to Poland because they cannot compete with the Indians. It's not H-1B there. They cannot compete. They're trained at the University of Sydney, the best university there, and they cannot compete because they keep getting lower wages and agreeing to lower wages than they want. I've watched that culture get destroyed, and I'm seeing it at such a homogenous level across every major city: Melbourne, Sydney, Canberra. You got all the way up in Gold Coast. It's all being destroyed, and I look at that as an American, and I go, I see that here regionally in some places. I just don't want that for the whole country. And I know I'm not retarded. Sorry, I probably should say on YouTube. I know I'm not the R word because. It looks like the whole country, or at least half the country's seeing what I'm seeing.
So it just feels like it feels like I'm talking to a woke person, because
that's fine.
All I'm hearing is my experience, my truth, my anecdotal evidence.
About the overarching trends
but everything
of
you just talked
nation.
about. For example,
it's not my experience. That's the actual.
It's the vibes you've
of the
observed.
country.
Immigration doesn't lower wages.
This stuff is like this is
a documented
This is
phenomenon.
the Liberal versus Conservative Party. This is their current debate. I spoke at CPAC Australia. This is being debated in their parliament. Like, this is not my experience. This is that's what you have Paul Revere or whatever. You have Justin Trudeau. This is what's happening in Canada too. This is not my experience. These are countries are split on this issue. I was living there. I'm saying I follow the politics. I'm involved. I have family in the political system, in the intelligence community. This is the actual issue going on. This is not
immigration.
I didn't read this in a book.
Immigration does not lower wages, except for one subgroup of Americans. Immigration leads to an increase in jobs for domestic-born Americans, an increase in wages for domestic-born Americans, because it's not just an increase in labor. So just give me a moment. It's not just an increase in the supply of labor, because if all that changed, and this is kind of the talking point, was, oh, well, now we have more people competing for the jobs, of course then wages would go down. But also the demand for all the other goods and services around them in the community also goes up. The total productive capacity of the nation and the economy goes up when you have more people who can work and produce. And what that means is higher wages and more jobs.
And it means-
There's
and-
so
and-
much
and it
research
means-
into this.
and it means
For every
no- it
immigrant
means
that
no
comes in
apple
and
pie,
fills a
means no
job.
baseball, it means no
I don't know about you,
confetti.
but I can go and buy an apple pie for a few dollars.
Guys, the argument.
I don't know what you're talking
wife
about.
makes me one
That's
for a
exactly the
few
point.
dollars
This is a
today.
really great example. Like, you don't know what I'm talking about. That's the point of your tweet when I said you don't know ish about this stuff. It's not singular culture. It's the fact that you cannot import massive amounts of people. So graph go up, and then wonder why it is that your mall no longer has Christmas morning with Santa Claus, and they're doing a holiday festival season instead. There are things that
Is
we care
that
about.
the worst thing in the world? That there's
the things we
multiple
care about and our
holidays
moral
represented?
traditions are no longer represented in our communities. It is a bad
Christmas
thing.
is no longer represented in our communities.
These things are on decline.
Not in Boca Raton.
I don't know where you live. I live in Grand Rapids, Michigan. I drive down. Everyone's house is decked out for Christmas. Churches are packed and overflowing. I just feel like you guys live in a different reality than I do.
No,
I live in
you
a
guys are
reality where I've watched numerous different subcultures be completely gutted and decimated, and industries ripped to shreds by this graph go up mentality of neolibs and libertarians. Thanks for watching this clip from the Culture War podcast. We're live every Friday, 10 a.m. to noon. So subscribe and come hang out.